What's going on, Tamers? East here, and first of all, I just want to give a big thank you to all the folks who had kind words to say after I snuck onto the Bandai Global Unification Program video for the Digimon card game. I truly appreciate some of the nice things you guys had to say. I was incredibly humbled. That being said, I will do my best to keep supporting the game and also not disappoint you. I feel like this is a weird parent-child dynamic at this point. I'm not sure what to make of it. But also, a couple other points here. First of all, to everyone who sent me an email telling me to tell Bandai to ban Mirage Galcamon, or telling me to tell Bandai to do anything, I think you may have it mistaken. First of all, way above my pay grade. And second of all, I think you grossly misunderstand the agreement of me just going on to a Bandai-produced event. Yeah, I don't think that I can be the savior you're asking for in this case, although I do hope they ban Mirage. And for everyone who's already done that, your sins are forgiven for now. But after this video, you got no excuse. Surprisingly, I received a lot more of those than I thought I would. Anyway, all of that to say, I do think it is very cool that Bandai is acknowledging and reaching out to their community, and hope that that kind of practice continues. There are a lot of really talented people in the Digimon card game space, and I think that utilizing any number of them in order to show off the game and to show it to other people is a great idea. Moving on though, EX08 released last week with some of the most interesting cards to hit the game in a long time, and we got everything from Gallantmon and Sakyamon support to updated tribal decks in Deep Savers and Nightmare Soldiers. We also got some more Liberator support in things like the Ice Snow deck with the new Skatymon and the other Pyramidimon deck using rocks and minerals, which has been a blast to play. Personally speaking, even though this was an extra set that doesn't have the full booster set amount of cards, there's a lot to really dig into here. And we'll do our best to touch on most of these things today. So with that said, let's take a look at some event results, a couple of key takeaways, and a closer look at some of the decks that topped over the course of the past week. So in a set where both secret rares are Gallantmon cards, I'm pretty sure these results don't shock anyone. And before I get actually in the comments, yes, I know they may have Gallantmon in the name, but they both serve very different purposes. I get that. We'll get to that later. Anyway, Gallant X and the new cards in that line are absolutely amazing, and the results here definitely show that as well. Gives the deck pretty much everything it needed and more. Excluding Gallantmon, some of the other decks that were introduced in the set also got their nice 15 minutes of fame. I think when you take a look at things like the Deep Savers deck, as well as Pyramidimon and Nightmare Soldiers, you see all of those on the list as well. I have seen some players getting really creative with the tribal decks and exploring some of the cards outside of the tribe as a way to help buff up the decks, and so I'm really interested in seeing how those develop. If you scan the list here, then you'll probably notice that two decks are conspicuously missing. The first one being Dynamon, the other one being Ice Snow with the new Skatymon. And honestly, I had really high hopes for these decks, but I'll keep my eyes peeled in case any lists do pop up, so make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any updates. And finally, while Gallantmon X really is stealing the limelight from pretty much every other deck in the game right now, when you look at tops from decks like Mother Control or Leopardmon, Medieval Gallantmon seems like a really interesting card. And honestly, I'm hoping that it helps these two underrepresented decks in the game right now, first being green, the other one being control style. Honestly, above all else, I think that Medieval Gallantmon is a fantastic control card, and I think that as a result of it, we might see more control decks in the game moving forward. Despite Gallantmon being the most popular deck in the game right now, I feel like every list I look at is a snowflake, because no two are alike. Gallantmon is a deck that actually has a pretty wide pool of cards to choose from, and the small decisions of card choice will widely change what the end result of the entire deck looks like. I will say that one thing that everybody can agree on is that Gallantmon X is here to stay. With the ability to hand out minus 8k, buff himself by 8k, unsuspend, discard security, and or blow up Digimon, this fella can dismantle a Magnamon armor with relative ease. I will say though, as far as strong cards go, Gallant X seems like one of the fairest cards ever printed though. This isn't another case of like a Magna X where you just can't do anything when he hits the board. He's not immune to option cards, and losing immunity when the memory tips over is a really valid counter strategy for pretty much any deck in the game. Taking a look at some of the other cards in the deck though, specifically at the level 3s, looking at the Digimon here, they only want to do one of two things, either get memory or draw more cards, especially with the help of the new Digimon X Antibody, who's a great searcher and has the nice little effect on Inheritance where he gives you +1 memory whenever you destroy an opponent's Digimon. Moving up to level 4s here, there's a huge emphasis on playing out the Takuto Tamers, taking a look at some of the things like the BT19 and BT12 Groundmon cards. Keep in mind this is an alt art from one of the, I think the tournament sets, like tournament promos, for the Groundmon here. And there's a really interesting 2-2 split between the Groundmon X Antibody and the Black Groundmon. And there's a reason for this. So the Groundmon X Antibody is really cool because whenever he's destroyed, if you have a Groundmon in sources, you can play a Digimon from your trash for free. So you get a new body on board whenever he's taken out. However, he cannot be evolved from a black Groundmon card. Specifically, his evolved text, the little rule text box there, says only a Groundmon level 4, not Groundmon in its name. And the Black Groundmon is a fantastic card as a way to mill cards out of the deck into the trash that you can pick up later using some of the other cards in the deck, but also his inheritance lets you pull back any card from the trash whenever he's deleted. The level 5 have a split between the BT12 War Groundmon and the EX3 War Groundmon, both who fulfill very different roles. The EX3 War Groundmon here letting you play Tamers out. Of course, he does have the ability to let you play the Digimon cards as well, but I'm assuming because there are no Digimon who can gain Rush, like the other, I think, EX4 Digimon, he's mostly focused on Tamers. Again, that is kind of a leap of faith there, but I feel pretty confident in that assumption. Also, the BT12 War Groundmon is a great way to kind of like pseudo warp into a level 6 whenever you get to him for a little bit less cost. But more importantly, his inheritance says that after the attack, if your opponent has no Digimon on board, you can gain 2 memory. So this is a really cool way for you to get into your Gallantmon X antibody, and then he can attack when the memory tips over on your opponent's turn, and then you can use the War Groundmon inheritance effect to actually tip the memory back over to keep your turn whenever he unsuspends, and you can attack again. Did I explain that well? I hope I did. And then finally, the 2 copies of the War Groundmon X antibody are, for a common card, amazing. This guy gives plus 3k in inheritance, he gives bounce protection from hand and deck, and he can blow up a 10k or lower DP Digimon, and that's like the base threshold. I mean, you can boost that up to like 14,000 if you have the right source cards. Also, inheritance, security attack plus 1 for nothing is awesome. So note that this deck uses the original X antibody card, where some other lists might be using the 4-cost Takuto Tamer you see on the left side there, alongside an X antibody proto form to get the same kind of effect, where with the old X antibody you can attack and then evolve during the attack. With the X antibody proto form, you get to evolve at cost minus, and then you have to use the Takuto to rest and then let it attack at the end of the turn when the memory tips over. But I mean, you can see how both are valid strategies. Another byproduct of using the X antibody proto form is that you can't actually recover any pieces if you lose them or your stack is destroyed from the trash. That's one of the reasons we do see the Black Groundmon and the War Groundmon from the EX series in this deck as well. One thing I really enjoy about Gallantmon right now is that the deck has so many micro decisions in building that really do change the overall look of the deck depending on like a couple of small tweaks here and there. And the cool thing is, like, no matter which build you go with, they all have a pretty coherent strategy. And so I'm really interested in seeing how other people build Gallantmon in the future as well. Pyramidimon has to be one of the funnest decks to play, hands down, in EX8. The new archetype of building up a huge stack and then getting your rocks off with Pyramidimon by using his fragment ability to save himself, or his evolve and attack effects to keep attacking your opponent and essentially OTK is so fun. Like I alluded to before, Pyramidimon on attack and on evolve, not once per turn by the way, can discard any 3 rock or mineral trait sources underneath him and gain sec plus 1 and unsuspend. It's like this really cool pseudo digiburst mechanic, but the best part is at the end of the turn, you can restack 3 of the mineral or rock type cards from your trash back up underneath him as a source. He can then use those cards as a way to save himself using the new fragment keyword by discarding, a certain number of cards in your sources you can survive whenever you would be deleted on board, or on future turns whenever he wants to make big offensive plays like the one I mentioned before. And while all of that might not seem like very much, the deck really takes off when you realize that all of the deck's cards' inheritance effects activate whenever they're discarded from sources. For example, the Tumblemon Digi-Egg gives you +1 memory, which is a reason why you see the Ukomon here. So he's a way to search out, but also to cycle through your eggs and get them into the trash as quickly as possible. Another awesome card is the level 5 Proganomon, I think I'm saying that right? Is that the right? Proganomon? If I'm saying it wrong, someone correct me in the comments below. But anyway, this guy lets you de-digivolve whenever it's discarded as a source card. And then to combo off of that, the Liberator-themed Sunizamon and Landramon both let you destroy a cost 4 Digimon whenever they're discarded from sources as well. I am a little surprised not to see any of the EX8 Gogmamon here as a way to redirect attacks into a Digimon. Considering you don't need to block, you can be suspended, and you can still get like some defensive plays out of that. But the BT4 Gogmamon is actually a godsend in this deck. He actually has proper Digiburst, which for Digiburst 1 lets you get +2k until the end of your opponent's turn, on top of the fact that his inheritance gives you +1k. And in this kind of deck where you're trying to get these huge OTKs, having the biggest Digimon on board is actually a huge deal. The last thing you want to do is hit this huge security Digimon like a Finralugomon Takemikazuchi and then die while you're trying to get an OTK off. And the game plan for this deck is stupidly simple. You simply build a Pyramidimon with 6 source cards and you can just attack 3 times and win the game. The cool thing is, if you find yourself lacking in any source cards when you do get to your Pyramidimon, having one of the closed tamers out from the Digimon Liberator set is a godsend. You can just rest her whenever Digimon evolves, and you can just take 2 sources from your trash that are mineral or rock and put them underneath that evolved Digimon. I have seen a couple of decks like Tekken, the one of Shadow Seraphimon Ace for the defensive play, but this list focuses on the Metal Seedramon Ace instead as a way to de-digivolve, pop a 7 cost or lower, and then technically when you have 1 or more memory, your opponent can't block you. So even better for the OTK potential. This deck is like the perfect triumvirate of equal parts simple, fun, and effective. And if you long for the days of Digiburst gameplay, then Pyramidimon might be the oasis in the desert for you. Each week I allow my champion level and higher YouTube members to vote on decks they want to see featured in these meta report videos. And this week they voted by a razor thin margin to see Deep Savers. If you'd like to vote on decks that you want to see featured in these kinds of videos, as well as some other cool perks and bonuses like early access to my content and access to all of my stream VODs, consider becoming a YouTube member as well. With that said, let's take a look at Deep Savers. When Deep Savers was first introduced to the game, I was super excited for the blend of that as well as the wide pool of aquatic cards we already had in the game. But when you take a look at some of the searcher cards, like the new Gomamon, who can search out only sea beasts and Deep Savers cards, but not aquatic cards, and then something like the Sangomon, who can't actually search out things like the Plesiomon or the Gomamon or the Crabmon, the deck could feel a little awkward to build. But I think the list here strikes the perfect balance where you can pretty much grab almost any card you need at any time. It forgoes some of the purple Deep Savers cards in favor of a more Seadramon-centric deck, using things like the Promo Seadramon who can give Rush whenever he's played from sources, as well as the BT15 Mega Seadramon who acts as a great form of removal. Another thing I like about this deck is how straightforward it is. The basic game plan is get to a Plesiomon, then play a Seadramon from his sources, evolve that Seadramon into a Mega Seadramon, DNA Digivolve that into the Aegistramon, and then just play more Sea Snakes. Ooh, can you say that 5 times fast? Play more Sea Snakes from sources. Ooh. And with the EX8 Mega Digimon letting you unsuspended Digimon on play, and the EX8 Digimon letting you attack and gain memory, you have a ton of great choices to play from under your Aegistramon sources. On top of this, Aegistramon having that sweet spot of insane protection while you have 1 memory is crazy. And if that wasn't enough, the Deep Savers option card that you see at the bottom here, while in face-up insecurity, if you have 1 or more memory, your Digimon can't die by battle, makes your board nearly unbreakable. So if you're looking for that great balance between Deep Savers and aquatic cards, this looks like the deck to dive in on. Well, with that, we're going to wrap up the first week of the EX8 Chain of Liberation events happening over here in Asia. And man, I feel like everybody right now is cooking. Now if I take Pyramidimon and I add in like the one of the Chimeramon so I can DNA 2 level 4s to get to level 5 for free, get stack another source, and then I can go into level 6 for cost -1 with potentially like 2 Tumblemons and sources. Oh, I'm cooking. I'm cooking. And if you're cooking up any good deck ideas for EX8, let me know in the comments below as well. Anyways, folks, I'm going to get out of here. Before you get out of here, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. I will say though that the one thing that everybody can agree on, agree on,